How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my jungle. Thorn's jungle, that is. Hope everyone's had a great week. My week's been going good. Not too bad, getting things done. And in case I haven't mentioned it before, but I'm pretty sure I have, if you want to hear more episodes every week, then join my Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a whole extra episode of Thorn's Jungle a week. And a whole bunch of other stuff. Depending on what tier. I mean, you can get like discounts on shirts and things like that. But for just $3, you can get a whole extra episode a week. Now, that's a pretty damn good deal, isn't it? Anyway, let's get into it. So, yesterday, I put out a thing on my Instagram story asking my followers for any wildlife related questions or topics that they can ask, and I'll answer it on this episode of Thorn's Jungle. I haven't seen the questions. I just looked at the list of them, screenshotted them, and this will be the first time I've seen them, so my answers will be pretty improvised answers. So bear with me. If I don't know the answers to any of your questions, I will tell you, because nobody can know everything about wildlife. So how about we get into it? Let's have a look. Alright. First question is from, Taurus Cohen. Taurus Cohen. I have a couple. So I've got a couple of questions here from the same person. That's alright. The more the better. Is the dung beetle actually the strongest animal relative to its size? So as far as we know, and as far as I know, yes, it is. I'm not sure of any other animal that can push, pull, lift over 1,000 times its body weight like the dung beetle can. And I think like that would be equivalent to a 70 kilogram person pushing or pulling like 7 or 8 double-decker buses or something like that. It's something crazy. And as far as I know, there are no other animals that are that strong. I mean, obviously rolling a big ball of dung would be a lot easier than dragging it or lifting it, but dung beetles do all of the above. So they are definitely crazy strong for their size. You know, imagine rolling a ball of turd that's like, I don't know, what's massive? The size of a couple of shipping containers. Not only would it be disgusting and you would get very stinky hands, but it would also be very heavy. Can you imagine the size of the bits of corn in that? Alright, so next one. This is again by Taurus Cohen. Do translucent animals have blood? Alright, that's a good question. So there are lots of different types of translucent or transparent animals. There's frogs that are fairly transparent. There's fish that are transparent. Yeah, there's quite a few, and they all kind of have different blood. Not all have different blood, but a lot of them have, like, for example, some of the translucent tree frogs, to avoid being seen easier, because obviously they're the blood running through their circulatory system. God, I've just woken up, guys. Could stand out to predators, potential predators. So they've got a method where they store most of their blood in their organs, like their liver. So it's not constantly just being pumped around their circulatory. I can't say that word. Circulatory system. Jesus Christ. So they have blood, and obviously red blood, which means they would have hemoglobin. But then there's fish like some of the real deep sea like ice fish that live in super cold water. They are transparent, but their blood, it's something like it doesn't contain hemoglobin. So it's not iron based, so it's not red. So their blood is actually translucent as well. It's transparent blood. Uh, Through what evolutionary processes they have to get to that, I don't know. I'm sure it was a long time of evolution to get to that point. But if you don't need hemoglobin, if you don't need the thing in your blood that makes it red, and if you're a transparent animal where that red blood can give you away to potential predators, then do away with it. That's what's great about evolution. It either repurposes things or just completely atrophies them. So, yeah, good question. All right, next one. Oh, there's quite a few from Taurus Cohen. But they look like they're good questions. All right. How and what specific species are able to regrow limbs? That is a good question. Everyone probably knows that animals like salamanders and axolotls can regrow their limbs, and not just almost regrow them like skinks do with their tails. So when some skinks lose their tails and they regenerate it, it never regenerates to how it previously looked. You can always tell a regen tail from these skinks if you see one. But animals like axolotls and salamanders, and axolotl is a type of salamander, they can completely regenerate their limbs. Axolotls can even regenerate half of their brains. So if half of their brain's taken away, they can regenerate it. It's insane. And it's something to do with like the blastema cells that form like around wounds. And I guess know to regrow that. So instead of like, just healing a wound, it heals the entire limb. It's pretty damn crazy. I mean, I'm not an expert in limb regeneration by any means, but I'm pretty sure it's just a very, very efficient, highly better way of healing than what, like we would have just with simple wounds. There is also a flatworm. Oh, what is it? Planarians. Yeah, planarians. This is crazy. Speaking of regeneration, planarians are a small worm. They're a little flatworm. But their ability to regenerate is ridiculous. So not only can you like cut a planarian in half and it will regenerate its body again, so you'll get two full planarian worms if you cut one in half. You can cut a tiny section of the planarian off, and that tiny section will regenerate into the entire animal. And there's something crazy, like they could cut off 1/200th or 1/300th of the worm, just a tiny chunk, and it would regenerate into the entire worm again. And there's certain studies, I was actually reading about this recently, like a couple months back, on planarians, where they trained these planarians to follow like a maze, like a course to get to their food. And once the planarians knew where to find the food, they cut the head off the planarian. And the head would regenerate its body, but also the body without the head would regenerate the head. And planarians do have like a neurological system, so they do have a very, very primitive brain, whether it be just a cluster of neurons, whatever, but it's contained in the head. But the planarian that's head regrew, completely new head, somehow still knew the maze to get to food. How crazy is that? That's very, very strange. And like, to be honest, I don't know the process of like how they're able to regenerate like that, but I know their body's full of neoplasts, which create cells that are associated with wound healing and things like that. But they must be packed full of them because it's insane. Planarians are just the craziest animal. Like, what a weird thing. All right, next question from Taurus Cohen again. How do albino animals exist? So, an albino is a mutation that basically lacks any pigment. So they have no pigment in their body, no color. So sort of by default, a lot of animals are white with pink eyes, but there are some exceptions. But it's a mutation in the body, and there's a few mutations, a lot of mutations that can alter pigment and express certain gene alleles that make them weird colors and things like that. Like you have leucism, you have melanism, where they've got an excess amount of melanin, which means they're black. But albinoism, they lack all pigment, so no color whatsoever. And a lot of the times in the wild, albino animals don't do well. I mean, they stand out like a sore thumb. Oh, this truck! Always, as soon as I hit record, a truck goes past. And it's doing laps as well. It is doing laps. I'm about to run out there and shake my fist at it. Every time. Honestly. Alright, back to it. So albinos don't really do well for most cases in the wild because they just stand out like a sore thumb. Any pigmentation that would cause any form of camouflage on their hair or skin or anything like that is gone. So imagine just like walking through a forest and you're a predator and you just see this glowing white bit of prey just standing there. You're like, alright, I can see you. That's an easy one. But then you can go the opposite and melanistic animals, so black panthers, which are melanistic leopards or melanistic jaguars. So they're leopards and jaguars that have an excess amount of melanin, making them black, although you can still see the rosettes in certain lighting. That's what a black panther is. A black panther isn't an actual standalone animal. But for the most cases, when they have this mutation, it can actually benefit them a lot of times in the wild because you're jet black, you primarily hunt at night. It's, bloody bonus. All right, Taurus Cohen again. What evolutionary challenges occurred in order for a narwhal to exist? Damn, that's a tough question. I mean, for anything to exist, really, and still exists, it would have had a lot of evolutionary challenges. That's what essentially causes evolution. Certain pressures, like certain challenges, can cause certain mutations that benefit that animal somehow, and is a process of evolution. So natural selection, as we all know, back to Darwinism, for example, and this is pure conjecture, I don't know, but looking at a narwhal, it would have had to have been something like, I mean, a narwhal is closely related to beluga whales, alright? So this is as like dumbed down as I can do it because obviously there's a lot more things that can go into it, but this is the most simple explanation that I could probably come up with just off the cuff. You would get it, narwhals that are born and their left canine tooth slightly bigger, and somehow that beluga narwhal with that canine tooth, left canine tooth being slightly bigger, somehow benefited, and it survives. And then future generations, that gene is expressed more and more through its descendants, and it's got longer left canine teeth. It gets longer and longer, and it's benefiting it, so it's outliving the ones that don't have quite as long ones. So the ones with the longer ones are surviving, therefore their genes are being passed on. Eventually that tooth penetrates the upper lip, and over hundreds of thousands of millions of years it becomes a tusk, and that tusk is there because it serves a purpose and served a purpose throughout its evolution. And for people that don't know, the narwhal's tusk is its left canine tooth that is just elongated. Sometimes there are narwhals that have both canine teeth elongated into tusks like that. And there are narwhals with two tusks sticking out. It's pretty damn cool. But for the most part, it's just a left one. And over all this evolutionary process, the tusk of the narwhal actually has a huge amount of nerve endings in it. So it can obviously feel temperature. We've all bitten into ice cream and stuff like that. It can feel vibrations, a lot of things, and there are a lot of functions with the narwhal's tusk. Not only can it detect certain things, but they reckon that it can use that tusk to push away floating ice, things like that. It's also used in mating. It's used in sexual selection, which is another thing that would force evolution. Is if the lady narwhals like males with bigger tusks, then they're going to mate with them, and the gene of the bigger tusk males gets passed on. So it's sexual selection as well. But yeah, that's a bloody great question. I hope I answered it because it's a complicated one. All right, Taurus Cohen again. Last one, I promise. How do animals become venomous? Good grief, you're not giving me the simple ones, eh? Jeez. Okay, venom. How did venom evolve? Venom evolved like many times on Earth. Like it wasn't just one sort of evolutionary process. Looking at snakes, for example, their venom. And look, I will tell you, I am not a venom expert. I've had a lot of venom in me, so I'm probably an expert on what venom feels like. But as far as how it evolved, I only really know very general or basic information on it. Snakes, for example, proteins and enzymes that are used in things like digestion and immune response. Over a long period of time, those proteins and enzymes in those sort of things for digestion and immune system were mutated to make and express certain enzymes that were more toxic and things like that, until they got to a point where they were of benefit to the animal. And the venom glands of snakes are just repurposed saliva glands. So that those enzymes and digestive juices and immune enzymes and bacteria or whatever evolved over time to become toxic, and like the narwhal, were beneficial for the snake. And over time, those proteins and enzymes, I guess, got more and more toxic. They mutated, they became other toxins and things like that. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, you have a venomous snake with those evolved enzymes, toxins, proteins in their repurposed saliva glands. Think animals like scorpions, for example. I think it's kind of the same deal but I think because their obviously venom is housed in the tail, I think it was more like enzymes used for their immunity, for their immune systems, like proteins called defensins, I think they are. And those defensins are like used in their immune system to fight bacteria, and obviously over many years they evolved to be, not just fight bacteria, but they mutate to become more and more powerful until they get to a point where they are now toxic. Whether or not it's used for defense or used for predation, those defensins against bacteria have become quite powerful, not just against bacteria, but for against other animals. So that's probably the best explanation I have. Again, I'm not a expert in this venom field. It's an answer. All right, what we got next? Ellie, 1590. As a kid, I was told not to touch birds, turtles, frogs, etc. because they had germs. Is that true? Absolutely, absolutely. Not it's not just specific to these animals. All animals have germs. Humans have germs. We're filthy as all get up, especially our mouths. But, as a rule of thumb, if you handle any animal whatsoever, you should wash your hands afterwards because, especially frogs, you don't know what toxins some of them frogs are carrying, so definitely wash your hands. And actually, with frogs, wash your hands before you handle them too, because humans have a lot of nasties on our skin that can be absorbed through frog skin and do damage to the frog. But yeah, rule of thumb, all animals, especially wild animals, they're going to have germs on them. So it's not just species specific. As a rule of thumb, wash your hands after handling animals. You don't know where they've been, what they've been walking through, they've been walking through swamps, rivers. They got all sorts of bacterias on them, just like humans, So yeah, it is true, but you should wash your hands because they do have germs. But every animal has germs. All right, Jonathan, my boy, old Jonathan. He's been on a couple of trips with us, with Rob and I, and he's a bloody champion. Love Jonathan, he's awesome. The Haas Seagull / see, I can't pronounce. You know how bad I am at pronouncing stuff. The Puaki legend. The Haas Eagle / Puaki legends. I don't know if that's pronounced right, but that's what I'm going with. Are they real? The Puaki, I'm assuming, is okay. So the Puaki, it was the Maori or Maori legend of a bird that killed people. That's as far as I know about the legend of it. It was like a sacred bird that they, of folklore mythology that could kill people. And they reckon it's the Haas Eagle. So for those that don't know what the Haas Eagle is, it's a now extinct eagle, and it was the largest eagle that's ever existed. It could weigh over 20 kilos, or I don't know what that is in pounds, 45, 50 pounds. So it was a massive eagle. It wasn't known to have a huge wingspan. It was more of like a heavy bird with what would you call it? A deeper wingspan. Much like the harpy eagle. Harpy eagles are huge, but they don't have a massive wingspan because the shorter wingspan allows them to maneuver through forests and things like that. So the Haas eagle was huge, but didn't have a tremendously big wingspan. But it was known for being able to take down moas. So a moa bird is another species of extinct bird found in New Zealand. It was a flightless bird, but it was huge. Think of an ostrich, but bigger and more heavily built. The moa could weigh 250 kilograms. So 550 pounds. This huge bird. And the Haas eagle could kill it, which is insane. It would go for the head, sort of bang, 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 do damage to the head and take down moas. That's nuts. So you've got to think, if a Haas eagle could take down a 250 kilogram moa, it probably would have, I'll place my bets that it could take down a human. Obviously moas don't have hands to fight off an eagle. They got tiny little atrophied vestigial wings that are basically useless. But I reckon a Haas eagle could take at least a small person or a kid for sure. If it hadn't happened, I'd be very surprised. And that's probably where the legends came from. It probably has done that in the past. The Haas in the past, flying fast. Its damage is vast. My hip-hop rap career never really took off. So, yeah, that's what I think. I reckon the legends are probably based on something. and it wouldn't surprise me if it's based on the Haas Eagle taking out a few Māori. Alright, this is from WA Bush and Wildlife. Is this Danny? It might be Danny. I don't want to, in case it's not, I don't want to say anything about how much of a champion he is. He's a cool guy, but it might not be him. I'm not too sure. He says, favorite reptile species found in Perth. Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, man. Oh, where do I start? There are reptiles that I'm yet to find in Perth that would probably be my favourites around Perth. I do love the Jan's banded snakes. I really do. Every time I find one, I'm super stoked with it. But to be honest, like, it's going to sound boring to people that live in Australia, but man, the bobtail, the old shingleback lizard, it's got to be my favourites. Just because they hold a special place in my heart. Like, I used to volunteer when I was a kid at a native wildlife rescue place, and like with my dad, and because I was too young to go there by myself, and we used to foster care dozens of shinglebacks, dozens of them. So we'll take them home. We had like this big enclosure built outside, and we would basically nurture them back to health and release them again. So and I'm always rescuing bobtails, always. I get so shinglebacks. We call them bobtails here in Perth. It's like a colloquial term for shinglebacks in Perth, bobtails. I get them in my backyard probably once every few weeks during the summer, and I just always love them. I've got such a soft spot for them. They're adorable as well. I mean, they don't even really look like a lizard. They just look like a pine cone, essentially. But I just love them. They're probably the most tameable lizard on the face of the earth. They have a blue tongue because they're part of the blue tongue family genus, and they when you go up to them, they open their mouth and they put out that bright blue tongue, and they've got a good bite on them. I'll give them that. But once you get a hold of them and just hold it for a while and just like pat it on the head for a bit, it's just like, I give up. I'm gonna go to sleep now. And you know, I reckon if you spent a day with one, you'd be able to tame it up to the point where it's like, just doesn't care. They're such a beautiful lizard in both both how they look and their nature as well. Mike Moriali. Mike Moriali. I'm so bad with names, even if it's such simple spelling. I'd mess Smith up if that was the last name. Be like, Smith? Huh? What does that say? Oh, when do we get a new season of Kings of Pain? I knew that question would come up. I knew it would. It comes up multiple times. I'm surprised there's not more, to be honest. I have answered this many times before, but no idea. Probably never, to be honest. It's not up to us. It's up to the TV network, and given it's been, 2 or 3 years since the last season, I'm not holding out any hope that there will be another season of Kings of Pain. Rob and I always said we'll do another one, for sure, but it's not up to us, you know, and last I heard, History Channel want to go back to doing more traditional history shows, and obviously Kings of Pain is way out there for History Channel. So yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but Rob and I are going to be pitching another TV show shortly, so maybe keep your eye out for that. I hope we can make it happen because it's such a cool idea. Such a cool idea, so I do hope it happens. Alright. Oh god. This name is going to kill me. Yolman Eseche? Yolman Uset. Anyway, thanks for the question. I'm so sorry I butchered your name. It's not your fault, it's me. It's not you, it's me. I promise you. Oh, I love this question. What's your favourite cryptid? Alright. My favourite cryptid? Okay, so I'm gonna split it into two sections here. One would be my favorite cryptid that I actually believe could exist, and the other category would be out of all the crazy cryptids, like the real weird ones that I know for a fact don't exist, but I will still answer what my favorite is out of that. It's like ask. I'll use that one similar to be like if you asked me what my favorite Pokemon was, right? Because most of these ones are fictional cryptids that probably don't exist. So let's separate the two. So the first one, my favorite cryptid out of the ones I think exist, is I've got to say the Orang Pendek because it's the only cryptid I've actually gone looking for in the jungles of Sumatra and did find potential evidence of. And I just think it is really cool because it lives in a jungle and I love jungles, hence the namesake of this podcast. So the Orang Pendek is basically a bipedal, so walks on two legs, ape that is said to live in the jungles of Sumatra. But it's only very small. So it's not like Bigfoot, where it's like 8 or 9 foot tall plus. It's only about 3.5 feet tall. And actually that's what its name means in Indonesian. Orang means man or person and pendek means small. So actually if someone misheard me, pendik means small. Of course it does. But no, it's pendek means small. So little person, little man. So that's what its name means. There's also another one which is the jungle walrus, which I'm super fascinated about. Obviously found in the Congo, where a lot of the weird cryptids are found. But there were a few like pretty well reputed reports of it from well regarded people that saw it and shot at it. Basically, it's like a scaly. Oh, how do I even start? A scaly. Think of it, a cat, like a tiger or something, but with a paddle-like tail, like a crocodile, and has scales on it, much like a crocodile or an armadillo. It had leopard patterns on it, so leopard rosettes, and a cat-like head with two large tusks or teeth, hence the name, the jungle walrus. And it's also called the dingo neck as well, in certain languages. But the interesting thing about this animal is, which also gives it some credence of existing, is there are cave paintings of it, which is very, very strange. There's actual cave paintings of this animal. So whether or not it exists or did exist at one point in time, who knows, but it's super fascinating. Alright, let's shift over to the just all-round cryptids. My favorite... Oh, man, this is hard. This is super hard. Oh, it's got... You know what? It's going to sound boring as all hell, but it's got to be Nessie. Nessie was the first cryptid I ever heard about. And I love every sort of... like the whole legend behind it. It's just this super deep lake, and there's a monster that lives in it. And whether or not it's a gentle monster or it's an aggressive monster, who knows? But I don't think Nessie exists, and I've actually done an episode. One of my earlier episodes was purely on why Nessie probably doesn't exist. But Nessie's kind of the spokesperson, the mascot for cryptozoology. Nessie and Bigfoot. But yeah, I just think it's such a cool concept. This plesiosaur type animal living in this deep loch, and you know, whether or not it's the only one in there, it's this one monster that lives in it. It's just really cool. So it's got to be Nessie. And one of my like most prized items that I own, and I've owned it ever since I was a kid. I was at an arcade before I went to the movies with my grandparents, and I must have been 5 or 6 years old, and I won a ring out of one of those, like, you know, vending machine things. They come in those little plastic capsule ball things, and I won a ring, and it was just this gold ring, gold in color. Obviously it wasn't real gold, and it just has this metal outline silhouette of a plesiosaur, the Loch Ness monster, on it. And for some reason, I just love it so much, and it's in my little sentimental box, and it's one of my like most prized treasures, and it's probably the oldest thing that I own, that I used to own, and I still do. So yeah, great question. I love it. Okay, Thomas McKinnon, nailed it. Nailed the name, Thomas McKinnon. How did your career working with animals? How did your career start? How did you start your career working with animals and tour guiding? Sorry, I'm reading them off this like tiny little square thing. Man, that is a long story. So obviously, I've always been obsessed with animals. I was born obsessed with animals. There is no memory of mine where I wasn't obsessed with animals or thinking about animals. I used to get in trouble at school because when kids were reading fiction books, I was reading animal encyclopedias. It's just a constant obsession. And even to this day, there is not a day where I haven't looked or researched some animal or learned something about an animal. It's just always on my mind. And if animals aren't on my mind, I feel guilty. It's so weird. So, yeah, I mean, I was just born obsessed with animals. And obviously, like, rescuing local animals, volunteering at wildlife rescue places. Then eventually I went to study wildlife biology, then quit halfway through because I was like, I already know this. Why do I need to do this for a piece of paper? This is blah, blah, blah. Then eventually went on and finished studies and stuff like that. But I worked as a field zoologist for an environmental consultant place. I used to go out to the Pilbara Desert and basically do fauna surveys, so catch wildlife so we could make a list to see which animals are in that area, things like that. Then I've just always been doing stuff with animals. And then I made my own wildlife documentaries. This was years before Kings of Pain, and probably what got me onto Kings of Pain. So obviously I did like, what was it, 4 wildlife documentaries, one in India, one in Penang, one in Peninsular Malaysia, one in Borneo. And obviously started getting noticed by production companies, things like that. Then ultimately it led to Kings of Pain. Then after doing Kings of Pain, Rob and I had always discussed like doing group trips where like we go on these awesome wildlife adventures. You know, I've been in a lot of different places, different parts of the world doing wildlife adventures. I love it. You know, I've camped out in the jungles by myself, been stalked by tigers out there, just a whole range. I love wildlife adventuring. It's what I live for. And like, for the most part, like when I'm not out away somewhere doing a wildlife adventure, I keep to myself at home. I'm a hermit, essentially. I basically plan for the next one. I'm like I don't want to say I'm Indiana Jones, but I'm basically Indiana Jones. To where, you know, there's the side of him where he's at teaching at school, at the university, and he looks kind of like a nerdy professor guy. And then there's the other half of him that the students don't really know about, and he's out there on an adventure, getting chased by tribes and looking for treasure. I'm a bit like that. When I'm home, and that's it. I'm still doing wildlife stuff, but you know, I'm pretty much on a wildlife adventure 2 or 3 months out of the year. I would love to do it more though. Anyway, so Rob and I always discussed doing group trips, taking people out on these wildlife adventures, taking people out on safari, letting people see how cool what we do is. And obviously when we take people on safari stuff, it's a lot more luxurious than what Rob and I are used to. Like, you know, sleeping on the floor of a jungle and stuff like that. No, we sleep in lodges and things like that when we're doing these trips. But we always discussed it, and we kind of went, all right, let's do it. Let's do one to South Africa, see if anybody's interested. And I was a little bit skeptical of it. I was like, all right, well, I'll advertise and see, you know, I doubt anyone is going to be interested. And people were. And now I think we've done 7 group trips altogether. And we've got 3 more planned, going to India and South Africa in a few months' time. And yeah, that's sort of where it came from. We were like, well, we love doing this. This is the best job in the world. You're going to the coolest places, seeing the coolest animals, having the most amazing experience, and we get to share it with people. We get to see people's reactions for the first time seeing a gorilla, 4 feet away from them, or an elephant walking past the vehicle. Just things like that. It's so cool. Um, and obviously, Rob and I have seen these animals a lot, but you never get bored of it. And you never get bored of seeing other people's reactions to it. So we love it. We love uh, talking about animals with people and showing people how cool animals are. So yeah, I hope we keep doing these trips and keep doing more and more, like more regularly. So if you're interested in on coming on one of our trips, the India one's full, the South Africa one's full, but we've got spots for the Uganda one in January, January 10th. There are spots available, and we're offering a discount on on that trip. It's a gorilla safari. You do everything: gorillas, chimpanzees, lions, elephants, hyenas, hippos, crocodiles. You name it, you will more than likely see it in Uganda on this Uganda trip. So if you've ever wanted to do that, don't pay 16, 17 grand US for the exact same thing that we do. So yeah, come along on one of these trips with us, because we don't know how long it'll last. We don't know if we'll go back to Uganda again. If we'll go, we just don't know. So just don't miss out. It's not like it's oh, I'll do it in a few years' time, because it might not be there in a few years' time. For the, you know, I'm hoping it is, but you never know. Anyway, so yeah, I think that was the last question. Yep, that was the last question. Damn, felt like I only just got started. But anyway, with my Patreon as well, if you become a member, you can suggest topics and questions and things like that on the Patreon that I will answer on the podcast, or do an entire podcast episode about. So if you haven't already, jump into my Patreon. It's $3 a month. That's nothing. You won't even notice it coming out. But it does support the show, and it does give me more intimate access to my listeners, to where I can communicate with you and get suggestions and things like that. So yeah, and on the Patreon thing, you can like make it so you can listen to the podcast on Spotify and things like that as well. So yeah, I hope everybody learned something from these questions, and for everyone that sent me in a question, thank you so much. They were really good questions. Like, you had me on my toes on a few of them, but they were bloody great questions, and thank you very much. And I'll see you next time on another episode of Thorn's Jungle. Take care, everyone.